Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Leadership Launchpad's Pick and Mix podcast. And if you're watching this on video, you might see a slight kind of glow in my face because me and Sufian have been laughing our heads off behind the scenes leading up to this me pressing record. So you will have seen from the starter image that we have, in my opinion, the great Sufian Sadiq here with us today. And before we get him to introduce himself, I'll just tell a little, anecdote about when we first met. And so I'd seen his stuff online, like lots of us had, and heard what he was doing at Chiltern, and being kind of like, wow, that guy's, really pushing hard. And then we got invited separately to this event that Iris Connect was kind of hosting with Hailey and a few other people. And Sufian stood up and did his piece in his kind of unique way. And it was funny for me because I was still at that point I felt quite shy because I didn't know many people. Lots of people who were there had that kind of existing relationships, and Sophie got up and spoke so kind of not clearly, but so kind of honestly that it almost set the tone for me then to be really honest and vulnerable. It was almost like he was vulnerable, which meant that I was able to be vulnerable. And of course, we know that now, don't we? Is that posh word, psychological safety? And then I don't know whether this was on purpose. I mean, Sophie, feel free. I don't. There's an 18 rating, I suppose, on this podcast. But I think Sofian swore at one point during that talk when he was talking passionately about something. I thought, oh, great, we're swearing as well. I'm in. Sign me up. So anyway, welcome and thanks for sparing some time, Sofian.
Thank you very much, and a real pleasure to be on. I love the great Sufian Sadiq. I am like, if I could have been something else, I would have loved to have been a boxer, and that kind of Steve Buffer kind of,
Undisputed.
and still the greatest.
Undefeated champion of professional development.
Exactly.
For those who I doubt there's anyone, but if anyone who doesn't know who you are, what's your role now? And then take us some steps backwards into your past.
So at the moment, I'm Chief Talent and Transformation Officer.
Love it.
And before that, I was Director of Talent and Teaching School. And I kind of make my titles up.
Nice.
The rest of my team, the HR team, will have to kind of almost run behind and say, what on earth have you done to your LinkedIn? Like, what are you now? There is no job description to go with this. And it kind of sums up my career. I kind of have had a number of roles. I've been in Children Learning Trust for 8 years now, essentially working in teacher development, teaching school, the ITT area, the teaching school hub area, that golden thread. Elements of that. Within that, we've got lots of school-to-school support, school improvement, lots of RISE work, attendance hub, behaviour hubs. So lots of a variety there, but also I always like saying this, a very successful, high-performing multi-academy trust.
Nice.
And we're proud of that. And I play a rich part in the recruitment within the multi-academy trust. A lot of the PR work around the MAT falls kind of within my domain, the teacher development elements, working with school improvement. So lots of work around that. Prior to that, I was a teacher in Luton Sixth Form College, a college I went to as a student, and I've done a whole cycle almost. I'm back working essentially for the organization which my high school is a part of. And I went back to my college after I graduated to teach.
Yeah.
So lots of post-16 experience. I'm a Ofsted inspector. I've enjoyed a lot of time as a examiner, a senior examiner in business studies. Business studies is my subject. The Sixth Form College was a standalone Sixth Form College, so it's 3,000 plus students within the college. So business studies department is about 900 students. And so being head of business there was quite a enriching role, quite an exciting role, because you had business, economics, accounting. So I'm still very deeply rooted in my business thinking. And then the current role I have came on. Still very much involved in the system. So I'm a I'm president-elect of the Chartered College. So I'm a big believer in the Chartered College for our sector. I do lots of keynotes nationally. Something I'm really proud of is that we don't charge for keynotes. Our keynotes around racial equity, diversity are things that we do from our moral purpose and mission in children. We've helped develop the REND movement, Racial Equity Network Dinner, around the country, and it's in a city near you. And I'm on over 10 charitable boards locally and nationally that are there to serve young people, especially those in deprivation, in poverty situations. So whether it's the food bank, whether it's the uniform exchange locally, whether it's a 16 to 19 charity, the local football club. So very much engrossed in community.
That is incredible. And I don't know tell me if we're going to get into this later or not, but is that equality and stuff something you had to deal with in your childhood?
I think we will get into it, because undoubtedly, when you're thinking about the future right now, unfortunately, we're in a situation where the fight for equality has been a tough fight. It's been a fight that, for people like myself, I recognize the fact that I stand on the shoulders of giants that had it a lot harder than me. But I also appreciate the fact that the system, if you look at the system as it is at the moment, you're not going to find multi-academy trust leaders that look like me. Very few, if any. You're not going to find ITT leaders that look like me. You're not going to find teaching school hub leaders that look like me. You're not going to find attendance and behavior hub leaders that look like me. There's a real issue of inclusivity and equity within the sector, an issue that people find really difficult to talk about, an issue that people struggle with. But nonetheless, the statistics, the reports, whether it's from the NFER or the DFE, show that there's a real issue around structural inequalities within the system. So that's been a tough journey. It's been a horrible journey at times. It's been a taxing and emotional journey. But unfortunately, when you look forward from standing here today in 2025, you'd like to think that we were at the point at which things would get better. But unfortunately, we almost got past the Black Lives Movement point in time when we thought, right, there's real change on the horizon here. There's real momentum. The world is changing. People are changing. Systems are changing. And then, boom, we're going to head into 2029, what looks like an incredibly scary time. I literally had a text message a minute before I came on from another very well-known leader that does work around racial equity nationally. And she just messaged to say, where are you thinking of relocating to when in 2029? And I thought to myself, how are we all thinking about just upping and leaving? What's happened to us on this journey?
Wow. The thing that's going through my mind, and this is, again, I don't know this because we haven't been friends for that long, is I'm saying, I hope, and this is a bad thing, I hope you don't, to be able to do that much stuff makes me feel like I'm not doing enough. So I'm hopeful you don't have a family. Do you have any kids and stuff?
2 children.
Oh, don't.
Hajar is 10 years old. Haytham is 8 years old. Nice. And a lot of my children, my wife, Asma, is a deputy head teacher as well. So she's also pastoral deputy head. So they normally get the worst deal. So we've got a busy life. Yeah. The children are very much involved in my day-to-day life. So if I'm at the community awards today in Luton this evening, my daughter will come with me. She'll collect for Luton Food Bank while she's there. I call it work experience, but they've been doing work experience since the age of 1. And we're molding them to be real champions. And that's probably something that does make it more difficult. When you're thinking about, if you look at it, Kristen, you're thinking about the contribution families like mine, and I'm just a family, and there's many people that do lots more than I do to make Britain what it is, that contribute to the rich tapestry of this country, that contribute to society in a positive way, that give back to society. And when I see the fact that actually my children from a very young age, my children last winter, we were in Malawi together and they spent 2 weeks out, raised money before they went, spent amazing time in schools in Malawi supporting people. Both of them, between them, my daughter in particular has raised probably £5,000 this year, and she's only 9 or 10 a week ago. And as a family, we contribute to the system, and it's just being able to say to those people that are pushing, propagating hate, and making the general public hate people that look like me, to understand that the love I have for this country, the love I have for being someone that's proud to be British, and what I feel I contribute to this country, to be able to, and this is why podcasts like this are so powerful, because they give insight into people and humans, allowing people to understand beyond my professional title, beyond my job, who is Sufian and what does Sufian do? And more importantly, unfortunately, we're in a situation now where people are saying, oh, what does he contribute since he's come to our country? What does he contribute? And I'd love to be able to show our contribution so that it recognizes that I'm just like many others from a background like mine that contribute so much to this country, and we don't have to be at odds with one another, and we don't need people to put us up against each other.
Amazing. Wow, that is what a strong start. We'll have to try and work hard to live up to that now for the rest of this. I'm just thinking, literally, tomorrow I'm going to volunteer at the TEDx Bristol, and I hadn't thought about it, but I wonder if I should. I mean, I should take my daughter, who's 14, and get her to watch these TEDx talks. That would be, why don't I start her professional development that early? Anyway,
I think you should.
There we go. That's my takeaway from today. So, for those that are new to the podcast, the guests get to choose a series of different elements that then make up the sequence of the chat. And the first one that we talk about is something called a fast friends question. And these are questions that are aimed at creating connection between people. And there's 36 in total, which we give them access to, and they choose 3. And they get increasingly more vulnerable. And so the first one that Sufian's chosen is, if you could wake up tomorrow having gained any one quality or ability, what would it be? Surely there's nothing.
I think for me, I thought about this, and as I said to you, I was in this total meltdown after you sent the questions, because one, I saw a link and I thought, oh gosh, Chris, I really like you and I want to be on the podcast, but do I have to do homework for a podcast? And then I actually opened the link, and then I just got stuck on the link for ages, because I kept thinking, no, but I want to answer this, and I want to answer this, and I want to answer this. So for me, this question, and actually it was quite deep, because I've been thinking a lot more about this. If I had the ability to know how people felt,
right,
I want to be able to ask someone, how are you, on a day that they need someone to ask them more than any other day. So many people suffer in silence. So many people suffer because of abuse, and all sorts of abuse, all forms of abuse. So many people are lonely. Loneliness in this country is such a big problem. And I'm one of those people that if I sat next to you on a train, I always end up being the kind of person that will want to start a conversation. And I recognize British culture is going in such a individualistic way that actually when you do talk to someone on a train or a bus, people find you to be a bit weird or awkward. But I love the idea of just seeing someone, talking to someone, asking them how they are. I love the idea to be able to compliment someone, just to be able to say, I want to be the person that said something nice to someone. But thinking about men's mental health being a real challenge in society, being 41 now and realizing that actually the number of men that commit suicide, and men in their 40s, and some of the challenges they face. And as a man that probably struggles a huge amount to be able to articulate my own feelings, I struggle to talk about feelings, and raised in a way that perhaps men's feelings weren't something that structurally or culturally we ever spoke about. But as I'm getting older, I'm realizing that there's so much loneliness around us. And if there was one superpower I had, I want to be able to know that if I walked past someone that was having the worst day of their life, I could stop them and I could ask them, how are you? And I could tell them something positive, and be that light for them when they are in the pits of darkness. And for me, that power to be able to understand when you can make a difference to someone is so important, because when you've experienced dark days, when you've been, and I know I talk about racism a lot, but racism in a sector where, when you are one of the very few people at a senior position, it becomes quite lonely. And there would have been days that I would have valued a hello from someone. How are you? There would have been events where I've been to, and I wish that, actually, I wish somebody else made an effort. I wish it wasn't me always trying to reach out to people and ask them how they are and be able to talk to them, because I'm going into this big conference and I'm feeling really nervous and I'm finding it really hard because I know that I look different. I feel different. I know that people have their own cliques, but I feel like I'm blessed with the fact that I have a level of resilience that takes me through, but I also recognize that so many people, through whatever experiences they've had in life, perhaps find those difficult days too difficult. And I would love to be able to look into you, Chris, today and be able to say, Chris, you're a great guy. Carry on doing what you're doing, because the podcast makes a difference. But it's that ability, I think, is such a superpower in a world where empathy is dying.
Well, and it really resonates with me. And I've got we all experience this, I think, that that kind of throwaway comment that you have, where people say, "Oh, how are you?" And they're not genuinely asking you that. It's some sort of filler question, isn't it? You bump into someone at the photocopier, you say, "Oh, how are you?" "Yeah, I'm all right. How are you?" "I'm all right," and that's it. I've got a colleague of mine who doesn't let me off the hook with that first question. She always says, "How are you?" And I usually say, "Fine." And she says, "Are you really?" And that is enough for me to sometimes say, "Well, actually, no. Now you say that, I'm having a bit of a tough day, to be honest. I've had a tough week or something like that." And that's fascinating for me as leaders, about whether that would be a nice takeaway, is to maybe ask that one extra question the next time you do your kind of throwaway, "How are you?" Just challenge them a little bit and say, "Really?"
But I think you're spot on. One of the things I stopped over 18 months ago talking about racial equity explicitly. I used to do a keynote on EDI. My experiences of it mentally took a massive toll on me personally, and each time, and I think with the genocide unfolding in Gaza and how that was being portrayed in the media, and how society found it so difficult to talk about children dying, being killed, and the fact that schools and government and policymakers and systems just didn't want to talk about it, made it really hard for me to be able to go from one platform to another platform to talk about it without breaking down. And I started then thinking, like, I'm still getting the request and people want to talk. And what could I do that's a positive contribution to the system? And I started doing a keynote called Good Eggs. And we need more good eggs in the system. And it's about, how can we be better people? How can we, as leaders, recognize the fact that when people are saying to us, recruitment's an issue in the profession, retention's an issue in the profession, progression's an issue in the profession, satisfaction, well-being, workload is an issue in the profession. All of them link back to one thing, that if line managers and leaders get their relationships right with people, they make a difference. And I always give that example. If you're calling in sick, or you're calling in about your child being sick, a real vulnerable pinch point for so many of us, and you've called in and someone is unable to ask you, how is your child? And say, how's your child, by your child's name, if that's your line manager. If they don't know your child's name, if they don't ask you how your child is, and they say, send cover in, that's the emotional, the lack of empathy that we're living in our system. And that's the trigger point that makes people say, all of that discretionary effort, everything I do for this school, not worth it, because my child's unwell and they couldn't even ask me how my child was.
Yeah. That's fascinating. And again, we're going a little bit off topic, but I guess it's fascinating. I tripped over this phrase. It's going to be the new Launchpad book comes out December the 1st, and I've put it in there. This phrase, quiet quitting.
Yeah. Which apparently is a massive trend.
Yeah, they're not leaving their jobs because they can't afford to, but they are just back to compliance.
And I think the quiet quitting within our profession, we've got retention problem of those that are actually the attrition of people leaving, but we've also got a bigger issue when you're talking about the lack of schools improving in a system. I would say that actually one of the most powerful things happening in our system right now that we're not looking at and tackling is the quiet quitting, because people have said, actually, there's a cost of living crisis in our country. There's more food banks than we've ever had. There's more uniform exchanges. People can't afford to lose their jobs. But what they have decided is that, as Andy Buck calls it, discretionary effort in his leadership book, I am no longer giving you extra because you're not giving me extra. And what we're finding is domain excellence in leadership, or in you being a domain expert in your subject, somehow means that you now get promoted to being an assistant head in charge of humans, and not realizing that domain expertise doesn't mean leadership expertise, and your inability now to look after the emotions, well-being of people, because you simply can't do what you mentioned, Chris, is ask that question, how are you?
Yeah. Amazing.
And that the power of that is huge.
So much going on in there. Well, let's get into your first ignition point. And again, for those that are new to the podcast, the idea is that we talk about experiences or people or events in the sort of guest's past that have triggered some sort of transformation. And the first one that you wrote down was titled Young Enterprise. So tell us a bit about that.
So if I move my finger there, that is a picture which I found in our old school, and it was up on on the school walls for about 15 years after I left. And once, when I joined the Multi Academy Trust, it was still up in the first year, and then somebody decided to dump it in the storeroom. And when I got my new office, I decided to take it and bring that picture up. And it's of us winning the regional or national award for Young Enterprise. And it made me reflect on what that meant. So one, the picture's up in the office because it is that ignition point for me that reminds me of who I am, where I've come from. It's a point that's really pertinent and poignant for me because I'm in one of our schools, in one of our school uniforms, and that makes me really proud to be a director in a multi-academy trust where I've been to one of our schools. And it makes me realize and remind myself every day when I come in why we do what we do and the difference it makes to people like me. And that ignition point for me was growing up in Luton. If you looked at the 2025 deprivation indicators, they would put Luton amongst one of the poorest places in the country, sadly. And unfortunately, when I was growing up, that issue was there then and probably more exacerbated then than it is now. There was a real issue around poverty, and growing up in a community where perhaps aspirations were there, but the mechanisms, tools to be able to escape the cycle of poverty wasn't there. We didn't have the role models, that being that first generation from migrant parents, economic migrant parents that came to this country, and being a person that was born in this country to migrant parents with EAL, English as an additional language, in the schooling system, spending quite a lot of time still back and forth often to Pakistan, because there was this belief that we were migrants, economic migrants, and eventually, and this topic that our parents often would say, that one day we're going to get kicked out of this country. Right. And I remember that because they had it etched in their minds from what happened in Uganda, to many people, that this will happen eventually here as well. And we always thought, no, it would never happen here. And come 2025, and it's looking like quite a real possibility, unfortunately. But that trigger point we went to a national final, and Young Enterprise existed then like it does now, a great program. And I realized we were outside selling in the local Arndale Centre, the mall in Luton, then in Milton Keynes when we went to the regionals, then in London when we went to nationals. And I realized that actually I was a full-on salesman. Nice. I was born and bred salesman. So most of you who work with me or see me talk will probably realize that I've got that salesman streak still within me. And it started at that point where I realized, actually, I can sell, and I can sell really well. And it made me believe that I was in year 10 then, and the other fellas on that picture were in year 11. And it made me realize I can lead people as well, and I can work with a group, I can inspire people. And that, for me, gave me hope of a better future for my parents, for my family. It made me realize at that point that I can take my family out of poverty. And that gave me motivation and ambition, because actually studies, it was very hard to conceptualize at that age, how will my academic work and excellence, or trying to work really hard in English, maths and science, contribute to me helping my mum quit her job as a cleaner, which for me pained me because she was trying to manage 5 children. She was then going in the evening trying to clean somewhere. And knowing the challenges that we were facing as a family, knowing my father was trying to provide for us and his relatives, siblings, his nieces, nephews in Pakistan that were facing extreme poverty and challenging situations as well, it made me realize that this moment in time made me believe that I can do it. I can make it, because I think I have a skill that is special. I have an ability that means that you can give me a product and leave me on a marketplace and I'll make it. And I still believe that till this day. If Nigel Farage puts me in prison when he's elected and I find myself on the streets, I reckon I'll be okay. You give me a week and you'll be coming to my market stall. Give me a month and you'll be at my shop, and give me a few years and I'll be a tycoon running cash and carries.
Well, there's so much wrapped up in that. I mean, the links to leadership are so clear for me. I mean, one of them being, if you exchanged, being a salesman for being a good persuader, then you then take leaders who have got to take their teams somewhere new. There's a bit of salesmanship in leadership, isn't it? And we talk about
I think it's absolutely one of the things. There's real negative connotations that we often use about used car salesman, and all of these other negative connotations that people put around sales. The power of persuasion, the power of negotiation. If somebody said to me, right, we have recruited, I can single-handedly say that the number of people I've recruited, we've had 300 plus teachers join us in Chiltern Learning Trust without an advert.
Right.
And I've had an interaction with the vast majority of them. Amazing. That role as a recruitment agent requires the power of negotiation and persuasion. Yeah. If I said to you that when we are going out and sharing our product, which is CPD, teacher development, and we're getting people to come join the ITT. We're getting people to join us for any project. It requires the power of persuasion and negotiation.
Yeah.
And those things, I think, are hugely, hugely powerful in that skill. But I also think that skill comes true in the classroom.
Yeah.
That a really good salesman is a really good storyteller.
Yeah.
Because what you don't do is you don't start talking about the product. And this is the business teacher in me. There's no point focusing entirely on the product. It's about making sure I understand you first as a person,
Yes.
and understand why the need for my product exists, and then be able to tell a story that convinces you why this water bottle will make things better for you. And I think I was a salesman in the class as well. I think the ability to capture their attention, I was able to take them with me on a journey.
Yeah. Love it.
By the way, for all of the viewers, I just moved my chair because it sounded like a fart noise, and I wanted to make sure that nobody thinks afterwards that I farted. It's my chair. When I went back, reclined, it made a noise.
Well, if I was being, mischievous, I would put in a massive fart noise into the recording, but I don't know how to do that. All right. Well, we're going to talk a little bit about some launch pads now. So Sufian chose 2 from the kind of volume 1 book that resonated with him. So I'll briefly introduce what I was thinking when I wrote it, and then we can ask Sufian why it resonated with him, and kind of add some stuff. This first one came from, I was reading Brene Brown's Dare to Lead, and she was in her kind of normal way talking very passionately about a frustration she has around visiting, big organizations' offices and seeing what sadly we do see a lot in education as well, this idea of an impact statement or a vision statement, or she talks quite funnily about, having 3 words, and a picture of an eagle or something on, as you step out of the lift. And yes, they have their place, but that their potential, I wrote here, lies dormant unless people proactively live them. And so there's a bit tongue in cheek, I suppose, and I think I've been guilty of this in previous leadership roles. This idea of, I don't know, having 3 words like trust, respect, and ambition, which maybe for the person who created them or the small team that created them means something. And under inspection or scrutiny, you could describe what they mean. But I think we need to go a little bit further than that. And actually, I'm so glad that Sufian picked this one, because this is almost how I would describe him, in that he talks an amazing game, as he says. He's a storyteller and a persuader and all those things, but yet he can literally put his finger on all the things he's doing that kind of showcase and scream about that. So it's great. I mean, I kind of loosely thought, wouldn't it be interesting to ask a visitor to your organization 3 questions, really? What can you see our visions? So if you're doing this right, staff should be able to see explicit demonstrations of the desired values. If you're saying that trust is a value in your school, then show me some autonomy and show me some delegation. If you're saying that respect is something that you value, then show me how you're collaborating with staff and with students and with stakeholders and things like that. How are you respecting their opinions and their ideas? And then if you've just had ambition, like I put here, point me to some innovation, point me to some talent mapping. And then I started thinking, okay, well, maybe it's not just about what you see, maybe it's about a feeling, and to stick with those 3 words, if you're saying that trust is your thing, if I asked staff, would they say, yes, I feel consulted, yes, I feel like a partner in these things? If it was respect, would they talk a lot about feelings of belonging and recognition? And then if we talked about ambition being one of your values, could staff put their hands on professional development, kind of opportunities that they've been given, which allow them to kind of chase their ambition? And then the obvious thing was then to kind of finish it off with hearing, what would I hear from staff and students and other stakeholders when I came to visit? If you're talking about trust, would I hear a lot of candor and a lot of curiosity and inquiry? if you're talking about respect, how much praise and kind of inclusive language would I hear? And then if I challenged people on their ambitions, would it be on the tip of their tongue about what aspirations they got for themselves and their kids and things like that? So I was kicking that around as an idea, but why did it resonate with you, Sufian?
For me, I think I like the phrase "live it, don't laminate it,"
Nice.
and I think schools have become a place where laminating great words. You're not going. You had kind of respect, ambition, trust there. You ain't going to find a single school in the country that has being horrible, being vindictive, being cruel, being nasty, being racist written on their walls, because we all have these great values. We've got it here, just there: honesty, care, collaboration, ambition, belonging, and inspiration. Now, we did a piece of work with all of our stakeholders. Over 2,000 plus people, children, families, community contributed to make this. But it's on us to now live it.
Yeah.
And that live part, that poster is irrelevant. It doesn't matter whether we could get it in the right shape or it looks great. It doesn't matter if we couldn't spell a lovely word by getting the first letter of them together to say, this is what we want to do in our school. The point is are the values lived? Now, my real thing about the sector is that if the values were lived, we wouldn't have a retention crisis.
Right.
If the values were lived, we wouldn't have a recruitment crisis. If the values were lived, we wouldn't have an issue with inclusivity within our schools. If the values were lived, we wouldn't have people retiring early and not wanting to get to pensionable age because they just cannot bear being in a school. What you don't hear people say, and I talk to so many people, is I don't want to be there because of the children. What you don't hear people say is I don't want to be there because because of the marking, I've decided I'm ending my entirety of my career here. People get into teaching because they know that discretionary effort is part of the territory. People get into it because there's a real moral imperative and they want to make a difference.
Yeah.
Me personally, I always say work is worship for me. Work is such an integral part of my daily life, and worship and faith is such an integral part of my entire life that work for me is worship. That I see the work I do is making a difference to the lives of people. I believe, and I'm very proud to talk about my faith, I'm very open about my faith. As a Muslim, I believe the concept that prophets existed to call people to truth. Prophets existed to give people an example of what good humans are and how to live and conduct their lives.
Yeah.
And they were fundamentally teachers. And we do the work of prophets by being teachers, because there's so much we can impart in wisdom, in character, to young people that can shape their lives forever. I've been shaped by teachers, and the teachers that shaped me, they lived the values. But what we need to remember as leaders is we pay lip service to those values there.
Yeah.
And what we do is we talk about the hard end of business. It's about behavior. It's about pastoral rituals, routines. It's about standards. It's about assessment. It's about making sure the results and outcomes are there. When we look at our schools, what we need to understand that if you get the culture right, if it's an environment where people can thrive, adults thrive, when an adult is happy to be in a school, guess what? Children will be happy to attend school and be in school, because they know that the adult that they go and see wants to be there, wants to see them, does care for them, because they're not pouring from an empty cup. They're not out of all of their mission and energy that they need to drive themselves forward. If leaders prioritized values and culture more than they did everything else, the byproduct of that would mean everything else goes up anyway, because people are brilliant. if you started with the mission that the average person that goes into this profession does it with good intention and has the ability to make a difference to the lives of young people, if you then treat them all well, and if you raise the bar in culture and values, people will produce amazing things for you, and that will be great results and outcomes.
Amazing. I mean, that stuff will echo with all the listeners, I'm sure. And, we hope that people have kind of takeaways or calls to action. And I suppose this one is to go back and to have an honest reflection on whether you are, whether you have just laminated your values or whether you're living them. And then don't get too caught up with it. Just live it. Tomorrow, after you listen to this, go do something.
Be a good egg. Be a good egg. Just think to yourself, honestly, every single day. And I'm not saying I'm a very good person. I'm not, and I make lots of mistakes. And I look back at things and the way I've conducted myself. I always think, how could I have been better? But the one thing I want to do every single day is try and be a better human. I don't want anyone, when I die, to say Sufian was a great leader of a teaching school. He was a great director in a mat. I want people to say he was a good human.
Yeah, nice.
And for me, our values, if I just live the Chiltern values, that will help me become a good person every day.
Yeah. Love it. All right. Well, let's move on to your second Fast Friends question. So this one says, is there something that you've dreamed of doing for a long time, and why haven't you done it?
I want to be the Prime Minister.
Go for it.
I'm going to put it out there. I genuinely believe, and I saw Zoran Mamdani the other day, and I saw him celebrate the New York City mayor election, and it brought the fire in me. Yeah. I want to be the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. I want to be the person that takes us out of the misery that we're experiencing in society at the moment. I want to be the counter product that goes there and tells people why I can make this country a better place than what Nigel and all of those other hate preachers are pushing for. That's my belief.
I'm going to be able to sell this podcast episode for millions when you become Prime Minister, because I was the first one to hear it. I love it. I mean,
and genuinely, I think, in my belief, leadership is one of those things that comes with great responsibility. Sure. But when I look at society, I genuinely believe that making a difference is the most important thing a leader can do.
Yeah.
Improving lives for people is the most important thing a leader can do.
Yeah.
Improving the conditions for people, thinking about young people is the most important thing a leader can do. Do I genuinely believe that education is the most important thing to change society for the better? Yes, 100% conviction that if we get it right with teachers, and teachers are the teachers of all professions in the entirety of society, if we get it right with children, we will develop a generation of young people that can transform society. And do I genuinely believe, if you said to me, what do I dream of? I always think to myself, I want to be someone that stood for something.
Yeah.
I want to be someone that believed with conviction that I was here for a greater purpose. And I genuinely believe that for me, that greater purpose isn't running a great school, isn't running a great multi-academy trust. It's about being a great person.
Yeah, nice.
And what does that look like? What do good people do? And trying to be a better person every day. What can I do to be a better person? I'm not saying I am a great person. I'm saying I want to be a great person. I want to be a person that helps others. I want to be a person that makes a difference to those that are around me. And I feel when I look at leaders that I admire, when I'm looking at Nelson Mandela, when I'm right now, Imran Khan's in prison in Pakistan, when I'm looking at Malcolm X, when I'm looking at Martin Luther King, When I'm looking at the leaders that stood for things before they got to where they wanted to be, came a lot of hardship.
Yeah.
And I recognize that I want to be true to my belief that when I talk about EDI in the system, when I talk about racial equity, I know that comes with a target on the back for me. I know that comes with limitations that will affect and impact my career. I know that it comes with risks associated with my career, with my job, with my occupation. And I know those risks, those limitations, and those factors will be heightened as hate and we move towards the far right. But what I also believe is that society needs people that don't fear, that stand for things with conviction and belief and have absolutely no fear. And I know when I wake up, I am absolute resolute every day that I have zero fear of any implications for standing up for the truth, standing up for what's right, and standing up for what's important. So I want to be someone that makes a massive difference to society. I dream of it every day.
I am feeling energized already, and I'm glad you started talking. You kept talking because at one point during that, I could hear like Whitney Houston. The children are our future. I thought me and you were going to start. Get off singing about.
I'm planning. I'm already thinking about my victory speech and my music for my entrance when I come out.
Walk-on song. Oh man! All right. Well, let's talk a bit about, and I think you've sort of alluded to this previously. The second ignition point you put down was parents. So tell us about your parents.
I think the most important thing I often say to young people to say to my own children, and what I know is I feel my parents didn't have the education I have. Mm-hmm. My father is well into his 80s, bless him, and he's an extremely generous man. And when I look at my father, to be a fraction of the man he is, I would feel that I've achieved something in my life. He's a very disciplined man with a huge amount of discipline, routine in his life. He gets up at 3 a.m. every morning. He is very firm on his exercise, on his diet. He's very spiritual as an individual. He's very kind and generous. If my dad had £100 in his pocket today, he would give £100 away. He would not leave a pound for himself. And when I look at that, in what it's instilled in myself and my siblings, is that people, community, service, others come before yourself. Yeah. And he's the most selfless man that I've ever met. He will, like he says himself, that when he goes, he will go with only the 2 pieces of cloth that we get buried with within our tradition. And he has nothing to his name. Other than that, everything else is for people. And the amount he does to support people, even in his 80s, is remarkably inspiring. But this is a man that could not read, write, and started work at the age of 9. Wow. Was homeless for significant periods of time in his life, worked as a dishwasher, as a cleaner, learnt to be a chef, but he epitomized hard work, graft, and he epitomized the migrant dream. He epitomized what it meant to be British. He epitomized what it meant to start with nothing and instill serious values in us as children. And my mother was there. Again, I don't think I can ever describe how much I love my mum and what she means to me in my life, but someone who lives and has lived a life of sacrifice, again, for children. She's raised all of us. Everyone's a graduate. Everyone's a successful person in their own field. And she did this as someone that could not speak a word of English. Incredible. She did this as someone that turned up for 5 children to parents' evenings and made sure that every one of us excelled with its masters, and it was just education, 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 with no desire for anything material in her life, but an absolute desire to create young people with a real moral grounding, with sound character that contribute not only to themselves and their families, but to society at large. And when I look at them too, for me, it epitomizes what it means to be a really good person. And when I talk about being good eggs, they're a really good pair that epitomize that absolutely in every shape, way, or form. And I look at them every day, and it's a blessing that I still have them in my life. I benefit from their wisdom, their care, their kindness, and love. I want to make them proud, and I want to be able to be someone that they are proud of. And my life and my mission has been their happiness. And I never, people often say, in a society where, again, we're so individualistic, if you said to me, what does the absolute peak of success look like? And for me, it's God is happy with me, and my parents are happy with me. And to know that my parents one day at their age, and if I pass away before they passed before me, I'd like to know either way that they were happy with me. And that's all for me as success in life.
I love it. Well, here's a question we haven't, this is an off-piste question, but do they know how you feel about them? Would they be surprised to listen to this?
I don't know. I'm not great. If somebody could translate the podcast in Urdu and say, look, we'll record a version in Urdu for you, Sufian, and then we'll send it to your parents. I think what they will know is I'm hugely respectful of my parents.
Right.
I still recognize, I still get told off regularly by my parents. I try and see them as much as I can, almost daily, try and spend as much time with them as I can. But I think they realize, I would like to think, my dad often says this to me, that I want you to know that you're everything I could have ever asked for in a son. And I'm really proud of you. And I think that as a statement, if you said to me, what's mission completed for me in life, is he's proud. Amazing. My mum, and if my siblings listen to this, my mum genuinely loves me more than them.
Yeah.
I know that. And I know she has to give a diplomatic and political answer in front of them. But they also know that she loves me more than them. And I know that she knows that making her proud and making her happy is one of the most important things in my life.
Yeah. Well, none of the other ones are going to be Prime Minister, are they?
No, they're not. But I would make sure that they should contribute richly as councillors or something in their local communities.
Nice. Well, I'll do some sort of backroom job for you as well if you want.
Then you're gonna be my media and comms guy.
Oh yeah, nice. I'll do the pictures. So let's crack on with the next launch pad. So this one is called, comes up, Go Off Plan But Stay With Purpose. And it came about because I think I was getting frustrated in lots of leadership conversations I was having about people dictating both the goal and the process. And it felt like you were stripping away all of the ownership and autonomy and engagement and all that from a process. So I started kicking around this idea, and the tagline, I suppose, is I put that sort of adaptation and innovation, if you're not watching this on the screen, requires divergent thinking and action, but this shouldn't be at the expense of the end goal. And so it was kind of double way around, really. We want people to feel like they can innovate and they can find novel responses to tricky situations, but we don't want them to go off piste, but then we don't want to not provide. So anyway, so I came up with this idea that maybe there's some benefits as a leader in being quite clear and quite direct about this is the goal, and it can be collaboratively created, the goal. All of this can be collaboratively agreed, but something around saying, look, this is a this is something I think we can all get on board with. This is the goal. These are the success criteria. Here are the active ingredients. And for those that aren't familiar with that phrase, the idea that this is what has to be included for it to work. This is the stuff that actually, triggers it. And then just making sure that our ethics and values are always in line. But then maybe you start loosening the reins a little bit and actually allow people to find different paths to that goal. So I started playing around with that and this idea that it may be that you allow people to use different techniques to get to that. So this would be a classic one in a lesson, wouldn't it? We want we want teachers to have a accurate and ongoing understanding of kids learning. Now, as long as you have that, how you do that, what questioning technique you use, or what AFL technique, could be up to you. The idea of staffing, who does what, that could be flexible. Resources, what you use, how much you use, could be flexible. Maybe what process you use to get there. I was thinking about levels of responsibility. Some people will have more or less responsibility. And then I guess there's some obvious differences within logistics. And so basically I was just trying to find that sweet spot between consistency and autonomy, or standardization and autonomy, that sort of thing. Why did it resonate with you, Sufian?
So I think for me, the squiggly line is me.
Right.
I don't. When I applied for this job, I often mentioned this. Adrian Rogers, our brilliant CEO, said to me, I think you should apply for this role as the head of teaching school at the time. That's what it was advertised as.
Yeah.
And I applied, and then I said to him, look, I've actually been on Google trying to find out what a teaching school is, and I don't know what a teaching school is. So, I'm just conscious, do I need to know what a teaching school is for this interview? Yeah. And he said, no, I recruit on attitude,
right.
Not experience or skill.
Nice.
And I want you for your attitude, so please apply. And I put the application in and I got the job. And since then, I've made it up as I've gone ahead. I've made up what I think is the right thing to do at the right time. That moral purpose has been absolutely at the heart of what we do in children teaching school. Yeah. So we're constantly, and I'm scattered, my whole office is scattered with just about hard work. I've got here hustle, grind, execute. It's about being the best, be the best you can be. I'm absolute conviction. I want to be the best skit in the country. I want to be the best teaching school hub in the country. I don't want a participation medal. I would be that guy that if I got a silver medal, I'd be crying and I'd be taking it off because I came in for gold and gold only. And being the best we can is really important. But when we're doing stuff really well, the one thing that you're afforded to do is to be really innovative and creative in being a trailblazer so others follow. And for me, the work we've done in serious youth violence, we recognize that there's a real epidemic around use of knives in society. People, children, are being killed on our streets because of knife crime. What can we do as teachers? The power of schools to change young people's thinking was huge. We've spent the last 2 years incubating, innovating with universities, with experts, with police, with lawyers, with hospital staff from the NHS, and said, let's develop the best possible curriculum around serious youth violence. And that innovation, that didn't come in, no one told me to do it. Nobody said we should do that. The aspirations work we're doing, we've got a real team working on aspirations. How do you find poor children? So we see Sutton Trust report and we see EEF reports come out around disadvantaged young people. But how do you find, what's the code? What's the magic code that makes those children in independent schools, in high-performing schools that are scattered around the country in the most affluent areas? How do we steal and codify those things that those children have and give them early on to these children so they have the access to Oxbridge and Red Brick universities? They have the access to the best degree apprenticeships and the work we're doing in aspirations, the work we're doing in resilient minds. So what can we do to develop the mental health issues and the mental health literacy in young people? Let's now work with counselors, experts, psychologists, psychiatrists, and try and develop a curriculum around that. Let's work with Mission 44 and work with Chartered College and say, right, we want to innovate and develop. We are one of the most diverse ITT providers in the country. Now let's bottle that up. Let's find out what's made us so brilliant and let's share that and change the system.
Yeah.
The same with the racial equity work. Nobody asked us to take part in it, but we're probably the highest level of contribution to racial equity in the system, I would confidently say, comes from Chiltern Learning Trust through our moral drive, our mission to make a difference. We do not benefit or profit from it, but we go out there and we make sure that we make enough noise about it. And that mission, with our core purpose and our values, has made sure that when we're thinking about rich school, poor school, and we make sure that poor schools have access to high quality CPD, we're very open about that and we're so passionate about that. We're making sure that if churches and mosques and charities in Luton want safeguarding training and first aid training, we're going to provide it for free.
Yeah.
We're absolutely committed to making sure that our impact, and I always ask this, I was working with Impact Ed the other day, and I said, I want to know if you took Chiltern away. Because my hypothesis and belief is if you took what we have now created as a team in Chiltern, if you took it away, what would be the empty hole that it leaves behind? And if it leaves a big empty hole, then we're doing the right things for society as a whole, not just educating children as one sort of transactional offer. As a whole, are we contributing to the society we're in? And are we being the innovators in trying to address social problems in society? And I believe we are.
Yeah, I love that. And it makes me think about, I mean, obviously part of your personality is around kind of innovating and being a little bit not adventurous, but I would imagine that if we spoke to your CEO, his mindset is, look, I set the direction and I set the core, and then I empower my staff, find innovative ways to get there.
He is the best in the country in finding the best people and then staying out of their way.
Yeah, nice.
What he realizes his philosophy is, and he puts a Steve Jobs quote up every half term, and he talks about the fact that you recruit the best people to let them get on with their work. Yeah. And that afforded autonomy that I have to be able to create, innovate, and be a maverick. Yeah. I'm very open about that. That actually, he doesn't know if I'm going left or going right on any given day, but he's afforded me that with that real, that, when they say that's like a stick of rock, that the values are running through, that as long as we are making a difference to the country, and as long as we are making a difference to the lives of young people, you crack on.
Love it. Wow. Let's get to the last bit, which is sad for me because I'm loving this, but this is the last question that Sufian chose. It says, and this is quite a vulnerable one, if you were to die this evening with no opportunity to communicate with anyone, what would you regret not having told someone?
I think the most important thing, I think about death every day. Right. And I think the most positive way to live is to believe that today is the last day that you're living.
Right.
And for me, that comes from a faith element. But I always thank myself, thank God every morning from myself that I'm thankful that I have another day to make a difference. I'm thankful at the end of the day that I've had the whole day.
Yeah.
And if, again, I always think about that question a lot, I would be upset that I hadn't had the opportunity to thank people enough.
Yeah.
I think being thankful, both God loves those that are thankful to him, but also thankful to people.
Yeah.
And for me, I want to be able to thank those people and be able to articulate that thanks with real gratitude, sincerity, authenticity. You gave me this platform today, Chris. This platform will probably reach out to some people. And if it made a difference, if something I said on this podcast makes a difference to one person, for me to be able to have the voice and be able to amplify and speak when sometimes when you're in my position, it feels like there's nobody that's listening and you have no platforms. I'm thankful for that. But sometimes as humans, we don't thank those that are around us that do so much to bring so much goodness, so much positivity in our life. And I think my biggest regret would be knowing that I didn't thank enough. And that's why I try to thank as many people as I can all the time. And be thankful for what I have to God. I think I would like to meet God knowing that He knew how thankful I was to Him for the life I've lived.
Yeah. Well, let me push you a little bit on this one then, because it's Friday. Is there someone that you should send an email to once we get off this to say thank you?
I think it links back to my first point. One would be, rather than an email, because they don't have emails, is I should thank my parents. And I think I don't do that enough. And I know that they've been a real beacon of inspiration to me. Thank even my children, the richness my children bring to my life, my wife, my friends, my family, is really important to be able to thank them. And then my team, I love the people that allow me to be me.
Yeah,
And I'm thankful to them. So yeah, I think I'm going to send a flurry of thank yous this evening to a lot of people for expressing that gratitude for life.
Yeah, I love it. Well, listen, in that vein, thank you for coming on today. It was a joy, as I knew it would be, and yeah.
Just remember to vote for me.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, don't worry, I'm on. And this will go out after because I applied to be on the Charter College Council. So if I get in and you get in, then you'll be my new boss. So happy days for that. Brilliant. Yeah. Well, thanks for all the listeners. How can people connect with you and your work, Sufian?
LinkedIn. I'd be very happy for people to contact me on LinkedIn, Sufian Sadiq, and you'll find me, Chiltern Learning Trust. If you put that in, you'll find me, unleashing_me on X, if you'd like to. The most important thing, connect with people, because talk to people. And we have a ton of visitors that visit us in Chiltern. We love to share. We never hold back in sharing anything and everything. We love to support. We love to contribute. If I could ever help anybody else with anything else, I'd love to help.
What a way to finish. Well, thanks to all the listeners. And yeah, we'll see you at the next one.
Thank you.